Hi everyone, it's Gary Nicholson here. This is your Planning Outlook video on Tuesday the 12th of March. Now, very unsettled for the rest of this week. Low pressure systems coming in from the Atlantic, periods of gales or severe gales on the mountains much of the time. Temperatures will be up and down, dropping notably again as we head toward the weekend as the air turns back to the northwest, and freezing levels will drop with snow showers falling to low levels once again. It looks though beyond that into next week as though milder southwesterlies will start to develop. Let's take you through the temperature sequence using the 850 millibar level chart, and that's currently between around 1100 and 1400 meters. If you see the numbers on the white background on this chart, add a 0 and you've got the height on this chart in meters. So we've got values below freezing on the Scottish tops through Wednesday daytime. We've got a low pressure system pulling away eastwards. If we move then onwards into Wednesday night and Thursday, we get fronts coming in from the Atlantic. A brief warm sector moves in. Temperatures lift towards freezing on Scottish tops. I'd be surprised if it gets above, but across England and Wales, temperatures lifting above 0 even on high tops for a time. But as a cold front comes back southwards, it puts chillier air back in place across much of Britain, and the mountains again are sub-0 through Thursday daytime for many, perhaps just Wales staying at or above freezing point on those higher tops. The next warm front comes in through late Thursday into Friday, and that's getting a bit further north. So for a spell briefly into Friday, we might see some thawing even up to highest Scottish tops, but it's temporary because a cold front quickly follows and freezing levels drop quite markedly then as we go through later Friday onwards into Saturday. Waving fronts across England and Wales will keep things a little bit on the less cold side here, but I suspect as we go through the weekend, the colder air will again extend to all regions. Values then shown on this chart would be about -5 on the top of Ben Nevis and Cairngorm, and around -3 or so at Munro level. If we just skip that on for a couple of days into next week, you'll see how we start off on the chilly side, and then as the greener colours start to emerge from the Atlantic, southwesterlies are coming in, and it looks more likely that we'll see some more sustained periods of thawing next week as milder air masses become more common. So some changes further down the line. For the time being, the mountains staying in winter mode through into the weekend. Here's your charts for these next few days. Wednesday has gales or severe gales across many areas, west or northwesterlies, low pressure pulling away into the North Sea, and frequent showers of snow and hail. Rain at lower levels will come in across those western mountains, but banding together and running inland across into the Pennines. Maybe just the southeast highlands escaping driest. The next warm front then is appearing from the Atlantic later on, and that system will move quickly through as we go through Wednesday night into Thursday. Another period of upland snow and rain at lower levels will go through. The fronts may well trail back across Wales most of the day as the next warm front starts to wriggle its way in from the Atlantic, so that front is never quite clearing fully, which could well give a wet day much of the time for Wales. Behind that, across northern England and across Scotland, we're back into a story of sunshine and showers, with snow above around 600 metres or so, and some hail maybe mixed in at times. The most frequent showers toward the western highlands of Scotland. Winds still pretty strong, extensively gale force for many places, might be a bit stronger than that early on in the day. Some uncertainty of detail as we go a bit further forwards, but the general theme puts another area of low pressure across Britain, this time passing to the north of Scotland through Friday, and at the risk of, again, severe gales across the mountains, just depending on the strength of that low. Fronts passing eastwards, again, some persistent falls of rain across the hills of England and Wales, and that may well give some flooding concerns, with rainfall totals starting to mount up across those western hills. Looks as though that cold front has gone from Scotland, so it's back to a story of showers, those frequent merging to longer spells of snow across the Western Highlands, rain at the very lowest levels, maybe up to even 500 or 600 metres, so it's just the tops mainly that are getting a covering of snow at this stage. Moving on into the weekend, and low confidence of precise details, but it looks as though a secondary centre of low pressure is forming on the waving fronts in the wake of Friday's system, that coming up from the southwest, and giving the risk of some extensive rain again, and that risk for flooding across Wales. On its northern side, across northern England, perhaps further north into Scotland, the scope for some further extensive snowfall. I wouldn't be absolutely certain on exactly how far north this system gets, but that's the story at least for Saturday, that mix of rain in the south and snow further toward the north. It may well be that northern Scotland is just still in a showery air mass coming in on a westerly. Now the wind varied, I think, around that low to the south, the risk of gales or severe gales. To the north of it across Scotland, the winds may be comparatively lighter, but still blustery and cold across the Scottish mountains. Now, of course, detail uncertain as we go through into Sunday. A lot going on before we get to this point, but the general message is one of showers. It's the leftovers of previous systems, really. It could organise themselves into something more frequent for a while, and with the airflow coming around from the northwest once again, freezing levels will have dropped widely, and it looks a cold day on most mountains. The wind speed, open to question, could be for a time up to gale force, but some lulls developing, maybe just not the extensive gales at least that we've seen in the days previous to this. So maybe a bit of something to work with as we go into the weekend. Keep an eye on your latest forecasts, of course. This is the snow depth forecast at any given 6-hour interval. I'll just start from Friday just to highlight what goes on into Saturday and treat it very, very carefully. Not got an absolute certainty in the story at this stage, but it just shows the northern side of those fronts putting snow back onto the Pennines, even Snowdonia, and there's snow lying across the Scottish mountains, chiefly more toward the west and the northwest at this stage. That takes you through into Sunday there. So I'd keep a watch on things for Saturday. It may well be that by the time we get to Sunday we're getting into something a little bit quieter. That northwesterly flow is in charge. To skip on then into next week, that low gets dragged away eastwards. High pressure around the Azores starts to build itself a little bit more in our direction, and that's the change developing over a few days into milder southwesterlies, most likely as next week goes on. Some fronts are still likely to pass across northwestern Britain, giving some rain, maybe at first some snow on the higher Scottish mountains, increasingly becoming more rain though, I would have thought, as time goes on. Could still be windy, could still be gale force over a good few days. Just the hint as we go further into the week that high begins to push a bit further northwards and something quieter and more settled getting further north, with any fronts being steered much more away towards the northwest of Scotland. So some drier days developing, particularly in England and Wales, and temperatures lifting with time as well. Probably a period of thaw then developing on many mountains. So we've got some wintry conditions still in the mountains for this next week ahead or so, but it does look as though things are on the change as we go further into next week. We'll update you on all the latest thoughts in the next video on Friday. Stay right up to date with all your local forecasts every day on our website. You can follow us on social media as well. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.